Okay, so here's a video on how to draw basically a finished attic. This one's a very simple one, but this is what it'll look like when we're done. This will represent the thermal boundary of the home. Just to kind of show you side by side, I'm just going to grab everything and I'm going to make a copy of it. Kind of throw this over here, and then I'm going to take the attic part and I'm going to delete it. So you've got everything else. I've got everything laid out on its appropriate layer. So I'm going to be drawing on the attic layer. Everything else is grouped so that, you know, it could disappear if I wanted it to, but we'll leave it on the drawing. Now, most of the time when you're drawing an attic, you're going to have some spaces from inside the attic or some measurements from inside the attic. So in this case, you'll probably know that this room is 16 feet wide and that the knee walls were 3'4", and that, you know, the collar beam was 3.5 feet, and hopefully you measured from the floor up to the ceiling. In this case, it looks like 8 foot, almost 8'7". You may have also measured these walls, but if you have all the other measurements, you can get the angle of these walls without measuring them. So just kind of depends on what measurements you've got, but work with what you've got. So this is 16 feet, and you know, we want to make it centered. So I'd come over here and I just grab my tape measure tool and I pull off of this wall so that I can give myself a reference line, and I'm going for the center, which it looks like it's snapping to the center right there. So now I need a room that's 16 feet wide, so I'm going to pull this direction 8 feet, and I'll pull this direction 8 feet, and there I have my walls for my room. Now I'm just going to draw a box, and if everything down below is grouped into some other group, then this box won't become a part of that, and I should be able to just pull up from that surface, and I'll pull up the height of the knee wall, which was 3'4". So now we still got to come up higher, but you know, there's 3 or 4 different ways you could do that. Our total height again was 8'7", right? So I'm going to pull a reference point off of the floor and I'm going to go up 8'7". So that would bring us up to here, and then just so you can see it, I'm going to put a reference mark here. So now you can see that, like, that is our ceiling height, right? But we don't really know what angle these walls are on, and you know, one way to do it is you could, up here in this space, you could draw that box, and then you could draw some lines down to connect it. Another thing you could do is to just draw that collar beam down here. So I'm going to give myself a reference point for the center, and then the collar beam width was 3'5". So half of 3'5" is 1'8.5". So I'm going to pull a reference line 1'8.5". I'm going to pull another reference point this direction, 1'8.5", and now this should represent our collar beam. So I'm going to draw a box there on that collar beam. Now I'm going to erase some of these guidelines so that things don't get too confusing, and then what I want to do is I want to select just the these 4 pieces that I just drew. Basically I want to select that collar beam and I'm going to move it up. So I'm going to move this picture around so that when I select stuff, that I'm not grabbing anything except for that collar beam. If I grab too much, if I go over too far, it's going to grab that back line, and I don't want to do it that. If I grab too far down, then it could potentially grab, you know, the back line or that back corner or something. So you want to be careful that you're only grabbing just that box, and if it helps, once you've grabbed it or selected it, you may want to zoom around and make sure that that's all you've done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that box up. Now since it's connected to this surface here and this surface here, it's going to pull all those points with it. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to grab the move tool, and I'm going to go from this point where it intersects here, which is just the center, and I'm going to move that whole box up to where these 2 lines intersect. So I'm going to grab it and I'm going to move it up. to right there where it snaps in, and I'm going to click and let go. And you now have your attic knee walls based off of information that you took on measurements inside the house. And you don't have to measure what this pitch is. You now have, exactly what it is, because you knew this distance and this width and this height. So I guess really quickly I could show you one other method that I use. If you know the pitch of the roof, then you can use this method. Let me just erase a couple of things here. So let's go back to our original drawing. I'm going to grab it. This time we'll go this direction with it. So I'm going to copy it and just drag it over here a little ways. And I want to say this was like an 8 pitch or something. So in fact, the way we can measure it is similar to the way that I would draw it. So just really quickly, I'm going to edit this group, and I'm going to give myself just a couple of reference lines so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to pull up here and put a line there, and I'm going to pull from here and go this way, and I'm going to go 12 inches, and then I want to measure from here up to there, which is 10 inches. So if my rise is 10 inches and the run is 12, then it is a 10 pitch, because for every 12 inches you run, the pitch of the roof equals the number of inches that you go up. So if this was a 4 pitch, then we would have only gone up to here. So we know this is a 10 pitch, right? Or we looked up at this particular roof and we guessed that this would probably be a 10 pitch based on what the roof looked like from the outside. So one thing you could do, sorry, I drew those lines inside. I've got to edit this, and I just want to delete my guidelines. Oh, in fact, since I'm drawing this, I'm going to delete this the whole top of this, right? Okay, so we want to draw a 10 pitch up here, and then we want to get rid of our knee walls areas. So again, I would start over here. I'd pull over this direction 12 inches, right? And then I want to pull a reference line up. So I'm going to grab this line and I'm just going to pull it up. And sometimes it helps if you can touch another line that's already going up. And if you'll just make sure that this line goes up 10 inches, then you can take your tape measure, and from this corner, you can draw from this corner to where these things intersect, and you now have a line that is a 10 pitch. And then if you want to know where to make that stop, wherever the peak of your roof is going to be should be the center. So I'm going to pull across this wall, and I'm going to touch this top corner until it snaps to the center, which is right there. So now my roof line is going to go from here up to here, and then it's going to go from here down to here. So let's draw that. So we draw up to there, down to there, and since everything down here is in a group of its own, we're not adding to this group, then we need to come over to this endpoint and complete that shape. Now if you'll just scroll around, we have the right shape. Let's delete some of these reference lines that we used to clean up our drawing. And if you'll scroll around to the back, grab your push-pull tool and just pull that out. And if you'll just bring your mouse down onto this surface, because that's where we want it, we want this wall to be parallel with this wall, so just drag it down to there. So now we have that space there. Now the other thing we needed to do is we need to make our knee walls, right? So we're going to come over to our drawing, and we know that these we either know that these come in 4 feet, or you could, if you knew that it was 16 feet wide and you wanted to pull off of this direction and start from the center and then go out, you could do that. In this case, we're just going to pull out 4 feet from both sides. So if you know that that's what you're looking at, 4 feet from there and there. And then we also know our height, which was 8'7", so 8'7". So now we have that space. So if you'll just simply draw a line for each of those spaces, And when you're doing this, you want to make sure it's going to snap on the intersection, and it's snapping to this intersection, and you're done. And I just wanted to check and make sure I actually drew that one right. Looks like I did. And then the other thing is, so I'm going to draw a line up here and snap to this intersection. So now you can take your push-pull tool and you're just going to push this back until you get that offset limited to 36, and it turns that shade of blue, and let go, and it'll make whatever you just pushed back kind of disappear. So I'm going to do that same thing here, and I'm looking for that weird semi-transparent shade of blue there, and I'll let go and it'll just make it all go away. And let's do that one more time on this side. And erase our guidelines, and we're done.